Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Coach Cran's Corner. I'm Chris Anderson, co-captain Team Cardhoarder, and today I'm here with Stephen Martin. How's it going, Stephen?
Pretty good.
Awesome. Today we're going to be playing Affinity, but not just any kind of Affinity. We're going to be playing my pet version of Affinity. I think it might be the right time to try this deck out again, see if it's good enough to take on the chaos that is Modern. So it's a red Affinity deck that it's a little bit slower, but it has a better range than normal Affinity. So what we're going to be doing that normal Affinity doesn't do is we have a full 7 burn spells. So we have access to Galvanic Blast and Shrapnel Blast. So what that does is it allows us to basically, we don't have to do as much work in order to kill them as the normal Affinity deck does. We only have to put in 15 damage or sometimes even 11 damage in order to kill them, and our burn spells can just do the rest. Other than that, it's mostly similar stuff. You still got Ravager. Ravager's great. Mox Opal, Cranial Plating, Steel Overseer, all those cards are amazing. Some of the differences that we have, though. We've got, instead of Memnites, I'm playing Arcbound Workers. So Arcbound Worker is a card that hasn't really seen much play in the modern era of Affinity, but it was pretty much a staple way back in the day with Mirrodin block. And when Affinity was in Standard, it would play 4 Arcbound Workers. And what Arcbound Worker does that Memnite really isn't able to do is it's like a decent draw other than in your opening hand. So Memnite gives you more explosive draws. It allows your Springleaf Drums to be a lot better, and you have the nut draw. A higher percentage of your draws are going to be nut draws. But it's also just an unbelievably useless card after that. It's a 1-mana 1/1, you know. So you draw it and you're just sad. But Arcbound Workers has Modular, and Modular lets you do a lot of really cool stuff. So the first thing, with an Arcbound Worker and an Arcbound Ravager, you've got, you can sacrifice the Worker to the Ravager and Modular the +1/+1 counter onto the Ravager again to let it be used to Modular a second time once the Ravager dies, or to put it on something else, either maybe a Vault Scourge or a Nexus land, or a Hangerback Walker, which we'll get to in a bit. But other things that it can do, it can pick up more counters from Steel Overseer, or if your Ravager dies, it can dump its counters on the Worker. And then when it dies, it's a lot bigger than 1/1, and it gets to take all those counters and move them over somewhere else. So basically, it's a creature that carries its power and toughness over after you kill it, so you kind of have to kill it twice. I think it's a lot more powerful card than Memnite, and I honestly think I might like it in general better than Memnite in any kind of Affinity deck, but certainly in the Shrapnel Blast version of the deck when you have extra sacrifice outlets. And then, yeah, finally, the last card in the deck that is a newcomer to the archetype is Hangerback Walker. It's basically in the place of something like an Etched Champion or a Master of Ethereum. But there's a lot of cool things you can do with it. It's almost always played as a 2-drop because this Affinity, and we don't have a ton of mana normally. But you can make it bigger with Steel Overseer. You can modular the counters onto it from Arcbound Ravager. You can sacrifice Hangerback Walker to Arcbound Ravager, and then you get a bunch of Thopter tokens, which you can then sacrifice to Arcbound Ravager. You can Shrapnel Blast it and make a bunch of tokens. Once you've got those tokens, your Signal Pests will make them all 2/1s, which lets you basically double the power of the Hangerback Walker. And let's see, other stuff. I think that's just about it, but still, Hangerback Walker has a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the deck, and I think it's pretty good. It's a little slow, though. At the end of the day, it is a 2-mana 1/1. Though I guess Steel Overseer and Ravager kind of are too. So, but yeah, I think it's really good, and I think it's really good in this version of the deck. So yeah, Steve, you got any questions or comments about the main deck? How do you think it's different than normal Affinity? Or I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
I think you're definitely right about the Memnite point. I played the deck a couple weekends ago before I had to leave, and I got steamrolled by Jund.
Okay.
And that matchup has normally been fine, but with the addition of just more artifact removal out of their sideboard, and the fact that every single time I had an S champion, he had a Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, that's not a good matchup.
It felt like I was just, when I ripped Memnites and Ornithopters later, even with the Seagate Wreckage in the board, I couldn't grind him out.
Yeah, it feels like you're getting time walked almost.
Yeah.
Whenever you draw
And
Memnite after turn 3.
The thing I remember about Game 3 specifically is I had to put 3+ counters on Memnite with a Ornithopter in play, and if that would have been, it didn't affect my draw if that was a Arcbound Worker or not, just because I had the Ornithopter as well.
Sure.
So if I had the Worker, I could have kept 2 threats in play instead of just getting the thing about Ancient Grudge in that matchup is it trades with both halves of Ravager, which is why it's so good. Mm-hmm. If you have an Arcbound Worker, now they have to trade with all 3 parts of it.
Right. So, yeah, it gives you an extra body to put your Ravager counters on, basically.
Yeah, and it makes it so that they have to just keep drawing more removal.
Mm-hmm. As far as the sideboard is concerned, it's mostly standard stuff. We've got Etched Champions on the board for the matchups where they're particularly good in. This card is still a powerhouse when it's good. I don't think you really want to play it in the main deck anymore with the popularity of Bantel Drazi around. Etched Champion is not very good against Drowner of Sorrows. Or Drowner of Secrets? Yeah.
Hope.
Drowner of Hope. There we go. Some sort of Drowner. Other than that, let's see. We got some Ancient Grudges for the Mirror, and against other decks that are packing lots of artifacts, Chran, Lantern, that kind of stuff. Whip Flare, just against small creature decks in general, it's really good. Spellskite, it's good against Bogles, it's good against Infect. Basically, yeah, it's just a really nice card. Not quite as powerful as it was now that Twain isn't really in the format, but still pretty great. And it being an artifact is pretty great as well. Let's see. We got a couple of Gira Aether Grids. That card is pretty great. And then we've got 4 counter spells. So Spell Snare is, I think, one of the best cards in the mirror, actually. All of your payoff cards in the mirror are basically 2-mana spells. So having a Spell Snare to basically just get rid of one of their payoff cards is really great. Also against Jund, all of their threats are 2-mana spells. And they've got a good amount of removal that are 2-drop removal also. Terminate. So it will usually find a target in that matchup too, which is pretty neat. It counters Stony Silence, which is important. Kataki, Hercule's Recall. A lot of the really good Affinity Hosers are 2-mana, so Spell Snare very efficiently and conveniently gets rid of it, while still allowing you to do whatever else it is that you're doing that turn. Being only a 1-mana spell, you can 2-spell very easily with it. Same thing with Spell Pierce. Counters different kinds of things. You get let's see, maybe Anger of the Gods, Night of Soul's Betrayal, Shatterstorm, Escape Shift, Cryptic Command. It's good against most of the blue decks or a lot of the decks that are trying to hit you 1-for-1 on removal spells and stuff. Allows you to play a good fish game with your threats. Yeah, that seems like pretty much it. Oh yeah, with the Aether Grid, Aether Grid's actually probably your best answer to Stony Silence, because the Aether Grid has the activated ability, not your artifacts. So it basically allows your artifacts that would normally just be sitting there in limbo, not doing anything. They're able to actually provide you value every single turn, and it's a pretty good board management spell, the Aether Grid. So, and a lot of Stony Silence decks are white decks, and white decks have a lot of small creatures in them. So it works out pretty well there. It's also great in the mirror. Everything's 1 toughness in the mirror, so it can pretty much kill everything. And yeah, so we're going to run this through a league, and hopefully the time will be right to bring back the Shrapnel Blasts. See you in a bit.